Yeah, I hit record because we never record the pre-discussion conversations.
That's true.
I guess
Because
because we joined first.
yes,
don't
I
know
mean you
why.
joined first, and we're now recording pre-discussion. Because
Oh, I'm just wondering why we
had.
had the button this time and you had the button last time.
I
I think it's
think it's
because we
because-
joined first.
Well, I think it's
Oh,
because it's your account.
I still have the button on my side,
Oh,
I don't
we
have
all
mine because
have the power.
I'm a guest,
so
Oh,
we
okay.
but
can
you own the account.
Yeah.
so we can start. We can stop. You didn't give me time to brush my dinner off my shoulders here.
Oh, it's okay.
You
was-
have time
Cut
right
this.
now. This is all going to get trimmed, right?
Yeah, you're assuming that I ever trim anything. So
Edit,
welcome.
Don't know her.
Editor, I barely know her.
Welcome to an ambushed episode of Cinematic Anarchy, where we're all feeling a little ambushed right now.
You promised.
Yeah,
You were
hi.
supposed to promise, Chris.
Look, I didn't say anything. I just gave the general feeling of the room.
Okay. Yep.
We haven't delved into any of that. We're going to stray away from speaking of
We
the
were
things that don't need to be
ambushed
spoken
by
about.
the addiction.
Yes.
The addiction, which had us feeling a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
If
so many
you can't
vibes.
tell. And I managed to come to the table without any of my notes, so I'm going to use a cheat sheet. I'm sorry. It's just gonna have to happen that way. Because I took all sorts of damn notes, and now I've sort of backtracked into the salmon cooking method that I used for dinner tonight. Where are my notes? Hi. So, I'm Chris, and with me tonight we have, if you can't tell, Matt. Rachel, how are you tonight?
Doing good.
Surviving.
Present.
Oh, so I said at work the other day, someone asked how I was doing. I said, I am not currently screaming obscenities.
I am not currently screaming obscenities externally.
Yes.
Right. At the moment,
They're
not out loud.
they're on repeat, attached to a broken vinyl record in my head. Just skip back. You know, that's what's going on with me right now. But that's fine. That's
all
fine.
We're fine here. How are you?
Right? I'm just picturing that one meme with the dog just surrounded by flames.
Fire.
Everything's fine. I'm fine.
Yep. This is
time
fine.
to move on. So this evening, we are going to be discussing the 1995 horror fantasy flick, The Addiction, an Able Ferrara directed film starring Christopher Walken, Lily Taylor, Edie Falco, Annabella Sciorra, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, Paul Calderon, and to a lesser extent Michael Imperioli, who ended up in the credits. Like, people focus on the fact that he's in the film, but he didn't really do a lot.
No, neither did Christopher Walken.
I did like Christopher Walken's part, though. His character had some good lines.
I defecate. When was the last time you did that?
I have to think about it.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you the last time, though.
No, please. I was quoting Christopher Walken from the movie.
I know.
His character was supposed to be female, and he liked the female. He liked that part better than the one they offered him, so he was like, I think I'll be that
Casanova was originally supposed to be male, and Christopher Walken's character was originally supposed to be female. And he had come in to read, I guess, for Casanova, but ended up liking the other part better, and so they switched it around.
Nice.
I have all sorts of thunder going on in the background here.
Is that thunder?
No, I believe it's somebody scooping ice in the background.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure if my microphone's picking up, but I'm calling it
can
out. There is somebody in the other room scooping ice. You know who you are.
One cube at a time.
How rude.
I'm just hearing like this just loud scooping, the scoop hitting the side of the container, ice hitting the glass. And I've got headphones on. So for some reason my hearing is
good.
No, my hearing is just extra enhanced tonight, I guess. I don't know. Probably a product of me having like earbuds in all day long.
It's the hypervigilance.
Yeah. It is.
Right? It's just like, why? Why are you interrupting the podcast? Stop.
In the last episode of Dead Do Not Podcast, my son is scream laughing to a YouTube video in the background.
Speaking.
He's like, like scream laughing in the background. I had to get up and give him food to get him to stop. I was like, here, have Pirate's booty, honey.
Speaking of screaming, so we can talk about the movie for a moment anyway. There is a part of the movie, I'm nearing the end of the film, the massive sort of blood orgy scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which was a little awkward to begin with, but for some reason, there is somebody screaming in such a way that it just sounds like a copper kettle on the stove just whistling at high pitch.
I think I interpreted that as just like part of the background music.
Yeah. It's just a very high tension scene.
They focused it with the movements of this one particular woman who was being attacked, though. So the sound of that
screaming the whole time,
or her scream just happens to sound like a
tea kettle,
boiling over.
It happens.
I don't know.
Or air being let out of a balloon at length.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably the only annoying part of this film for me, anyway.
Rachel had some feelings about this film.
You had some feelings?
I think because you tried to watch it before.
I have watched it before. I just forgot how unlikable the Kathy character is.
She's like Janine Garofalo's personality without the humor.
Yeah, she's just intense and dark, and
she's an existential philosopher.
Takes herself way too seriously.
She played the part.
I mean, she did, right? But she's just, and then she speaks really softly all the time. I don't know why she bothers me, but she bothers me.
There were several parts of the film where I had to turn on the subtitles because I couldn't understand what the hell she was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got really quiet a few times.
Yeah.
She was specifically the restaurant and her attacking Black.
Yeah. And it was just, I don't know. With all the attention to detail that they put into the dialogue and making sure that we referenced literally every philosopher who ever existed at some point in the movie, and then we get no explanation for how it works. Like, she shoots up blood. She doesn't have to drink it. She can, like, inject it like heroin. And then the minute she does that, she doesn't have a reflection anymore.
Right.
And we never come back to that. She never ever mentions that ever again. How that is
she does mention that she has covered up all the mirrors.
But she goes,
her
but
house.
Why? Is it because I cannot stand my own reflection?
Oh, right.
And it's like, no, it's because you weren't in them. Did you forget that you weren't in the mirrors? And then
she may have like blinded herself mentally to the fact that she wasn't in them.
It's metaphorical.
Medicine is an extended metaphor for omnipotence.
Impotence, isn't it?
No, I thought it was omnipotence.
I think it's impotence.
The hubris to think that you can meddle with reality.
It was omnipotence.
Oh, I heard it as impotence. I don't know. I liked it either way.
She also speaks under her breath. The only reason I knew that is because of the fact that, like I said, I turned the subtitles on. So
yeah, and she whisper speaks, so it's hard to tell. And then you meet Christopher Walken, and he's like, I haven't had blood in 40 years.
He hasn't had human blood, is my interpretation.
Well, yeah, because then he's like, I'm going to feed on everything that's good in you. And then he's like, and that's why I can eat and I can take shits and I have all the perks of being human. I defecate. Isn't that amazing? And then she escapes. We don't know how. It doesn't really matter. And then all you have to do to infect somebody to become a vampire is bite them. So she immediately makes like 20 vampires.
You know, at first I thought she was making like a grouping of intellectual vampires, and then there was just a handful of people that she kind of turned, like Black's character, who seemed
Yeah.
to be just kind of trolling the streets for women. And then there was just some random guy at the party that looked like Kevin Federline homeless edition.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the
You know.
guy. That was the cabbie that picked her up, collapsed on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Oh,
After
well,
she
that's the
escaped
one that
from
she
Christopher
drew the
Walken.
blood from.
No, after she escapes
That-
from Christopher Walken, she like passes out on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
and
and
he
this
picks
guy
her
comes
up.
over and picks her up, and he's carrying her down the sidewalk, and
Okay.
he puts her head up by his shoulder while he's carrying her, and then
And that's when she
bites
attacked him. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know, could she not bring herself to actually end a person's life?
Well,
Or
that's what I'm like.
right?
What? Because she goes through the whole thing where she realizes, I guess, that she needs blood. I don't know. And then she's immediately doing the exact same thing that Casanova did, where she's like, just tell me to go away.
Is
Don't
it
beg.
possible in this particular vampiric universe you can't kill the person that you've bitten?
It's possible.
So, like that entire party of people that she invited over and they all attacked and drained, is it possible they've all turned into vampires at this point?
Yeah. Unless you deliberately
Except
like
for her.
kill them, like decapitate them or something.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see any heads on pikes at the end of the party, so.
Well, but she's alive, like, and she's out during the day. Like, she's fine at the end. And from
And then
Christopher
she passes away. Oh no, she fakes her death.
she
That's
fakes
right.
her own death, and then she's out, and it's daytime. And what does she say? Like, self-revelation is like the death of self or something. And
Yeah.
then she's like, haha, and that explains it. And she just leaves, and you're like, wait, no. That explains
Something in the
nothing.
nature of self-revelation only being achieved through self-destruction.
Yeah.
Yeah, the destruction of the self.
So she had to hit rock bottom, and that's how she got better, or that.
Yeah.
And rock bottom
Yeah.
was murdering the entire philosophy department.
Apparently.
And and whoever she could get to come in after she spent time in the stockroom screaming, "I will not submit" at herself and ripping all of her clothes off.
That was a weird scene. I didn't get the context of what was she refusing to submit to.
Yeah.
I loved her command to her friend Jean, like right after ripping off her clothes. Find me a girl and make sure her clothes fit.
Yeah. And her friend's like, "Kay," and she just leaves.
Right, yeah, and I think that set,
No questions.
that
Yeah.
set a lot of the relationship change after she bit her friend.
I just think she goes with it too quickly. I think that's my problem with the movie in general, is just she gets bit. We have a couple of scenes where she's like, "Oh no, something bad happened to me." And then all of a sudden she's like, "Well, I'm a vampire and I murder people now, including children." And then that's the whole rest of the movie. It's just her being like, "I can kill my friends. I can kill people on the street. I can just kill whoever I want to." And then she's holding that child's shoe at one point, and you're like, is that supposed to imply that she killed a kid? And then Christopher Walken asked her about it. He's like, "Did you do any kids yet?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, they're all easy after the first one." And you're like, what? Does it change you mentally?
Yeah, I was thinking it probably, or it must compel you to become, I don't know, like psychotic in somehow, or violent.
Well, at this point, when they're looking at a human being, they're not looking at them as human beings anymore. They're looking at them as the next possible fix. So
Yeah.
it's just people are their addiction. The blood that flows through their vein is the addiction in this.
Yeah. Yeah, because she has that scene in the cab where she's talking about how their life is a paradox because you spend all of your time trying to find a relief from your addiction, but the only relief from your addiction is your addiction, is like satisfying your need or whatever. And you're like, I mean, I get it. I don't know, maybe because I have watched a lot of vampire movies, and I just need you to give me like 10 minutes of them being like, oh no, what has happened? Instead of just being like, cool. For some reason, own needles already, and I'm going to go just knock a guy out and take his blood. Oh, and then I'm going to invite my professor over on a fuck date. And I'm going to be like, hey, you want to get high on heroin? And he's going to be like, cool. And then she writes in and out on his arm for some reason. Like, here's where I took blood out. Here's where I put blood in. I don't know. Heroin, I guess, whatever. I don't know. It was just the point was the philosophy. It wasn't the vampire lore.
I don't know how the
It was
heroin
all a
intake
metaphor.
goes. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
no.
accurate.
I don't know. I don't know why we needed an in and an out. She literally writes on his arm,
Right. Yeah.
in and out.
Heroin, you put the powder on the spoon, you put the spoon over a candle or a flame to melt it. And then once it's melted, I think you skim off the top with the needle, and then you can inject the stuff from the needle into your body.
We watch a lot of Intervention.
That comes from the DARE program, where they
Oh.
teach you how to do the drugs.
Yes.
So that you know
DARE.
not to do the drugs.
It's like, we're going to teach you how bad the drugs are by giving you step-by-step instructions on how to acquire
Kinda.
and appropriately use them and where to get the clean needles.
But it's okay because just say no. It's fine. It's fine.
Just say, that's a little bit too much effort. I don't want that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's good. I liked this movie the last time I watched it. I liked it okay this time. I think because it's so different. But I don't. She's just an unlikable
Yeah, and they never use the
character.
word vampire, which I
No.
always appreciate.
They do mention that she's dead.
Yeah, she mentions that she's rotting on the
And
inside.
she pulls out her own fucking tooth. What was that part?
That was weird.
Yeah. I honestly, I enjoyed the film. I kind of interpreted the end a little differently. Like, I thought that somehow the communion wafer that she ingested cleansed her of the vampirism.
Oh, okay. So you went full near dark.
So I went the other way. I went basically being the whole thing. The guy basically giving her the communion wafer, blessing her, whatever, basically resurrected her, so to speak. Cleansed her of the vampirism. Whether or not that's actually true, they left it vague. They left it open to interpretation.
Yeah. All of the vampire mythology is vague.
I mean, she
Which
could be
is
the
kinda
next Blade.
frustrating.
She's a day walker, maybe.
Well, Christopher Walken could go around in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she chained up all of her friends and she's feeding on them.
Right. So Christopher Walken's character, I don't remember his character's name. He does not feed on human blood. He only drinks vampire blood, is the sense I got. And drinking vampire blood makes him more human. So it gets rid of all the vampire weaknesses.
I think he said the last time he indulged, he took out like 12 people at the same time.
Yeah. In one night. He's like, it's hard to can't eat just one.
Is that like was that Pringles or is that Doritos?
I
But
think
you
it was
can't eat just one.
Lay's potatoes.
Lay's potatoes. Can't eat just one.
Bet you can't drink just one.
I did like, I don't know, her really awkward date with the professor was probably like the most delightfully awkward scene in the end because she's working on her dissertation. So her professor's like, cool, are we meeting tonight to go over it? And then you cut to them in like the most obnoxiously claustrophobic restaurant I've ever seen in my life. And they're both sitting at this table and she's got a stack of books. And he's like, so it's been an hour and you haven't said anything. And she's like, there's two kinds of silence. She's like, there's silence according to Sartre and then silence according to some other philosopher. And she's like,
Max something or other.
yeah, she's like,
I
why
had to
didn't you
go
tell me?
back. I still don't remember the name specifically because the first time they said it, it registered as Max Payne, and I know that's not right. I know Max is the right name, but it's not Max Payne.
It was just, and she's
I'm
like,
Nixon.
I think she was trying to invite him to banter, but he wasn't really
well,
in a
she goes, why don't you tell me
friendly
what kind of
banter mood.
silence this is or whatever. It was a very aggressive, like, you should know why I'm being quiet thing. And I was like, what is going, you said yes to coming here. And then they're walking back to her apartment, which I always love how they're like, she's the lonely single woman in New York who has like a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, while only working on her PhD.
Well, only working on her PhD. Sure. Yeah.
They do reference her having to go to work at some point.
Well, I think she's like a TA.
Okay.
I don't know.
She has the atypical college kid's bedroom with the mattress directly on the floor.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. In this like $2,500 a month apartment, she's got a mattress.
What
on the
would be
floor.
now?
Yeah, what would now?
$2,500 a month. You probably can't afford the box spring.
Yeah, apparently not. I love it when she goes to it's like a cafeteria and she's just pushing the salad around on the plate.
Yeah.
And her friend brings the burger and it's the most I'm an actor, I'm eating I've ever seen anyone, because she's like, mama, but she doesn't actually take a bite of anything. She just like,
Yeah, she just like mushes the bun against her
mouth,
her
and then
lips as
every
they
time
move.
she puts it down, the burger looks exactly the same. Like the burger never diminishes in size, no matter how many times she actually bites it. And at one point, she pretends to pick up part of it and put it in her mouth and chew, and she doesn't actually pick anything up. She like
it looked fairly convincing though.
She like air eats a pickle or something. Yeah. It's like,
well, this is how Tony Soprano's wife managed to land her role.
Well, maybe they.
What was it? That reminds me of Chris Pratt had a scene in Parks and Rec where Andy had to eat a burger, and they did like 12 takes, and every time he ate the entire burger.
Well, I was going to say it's really low budget. Maybe they could only afford the one burger, so she wasn't allowed to eat it. She could just pretend.
She might have been on a diet at the time. Yeah.
I don't normally. Burger. This is the nicest looking burger we could get, and it's for the director after you're done filming.
And her head like bobs up and down too, like she's really eating it.
Yeah.
And then the most unlikable Kathy gets is when she takes that lady home from the library, and then the lady is standing in the mirror, which they have very deliberately tilted so that they didn't have to edit her out of the mirror.
Right.
And she's like, why did you do that? And she's like, if you think about it, you did it to yourself. And she's like, no, I didn't. She's like, well, yeah, you did, because you invited me here and you didn't tell me to stop. And that makes it your fault.
Which is like a mantra between them, because like even Annabella Casanova, she started off the whole thing was tell me to leave, tell me to go away.
Yeah, don't beg, just tell me to go. And of course she's like, please. And she's like, oh, you fucked it up. Like you could have just told. And she
you
does
think
that
that's going to stop me?
Yeah, every time she does, tell me to leave, just tell me to leave. And so that's what she says to the girl. She's like, you could have told me to leave and you didn't tell me to leave. So
right. And even Christopher Walken's character
says it. It's very assaulty, like very sexual assaulty, and it was a very like
blaming the victim
blamey.
The vibe I got,
kind of a gross moment.
I guess my interpretation of it in the context of the like vampire mythology lore or whatever is when you become a vampire and you start consuming blood, you have this like forced mental shift of yourself as like the superior species and humans are less than. And so humans are weak, but they're like you. So you want to meet a human who can actually like push back against your like heightened assertiveness as the one with the power.
Right.
But whenever she's like displaying her prowess to a human, they always back off. And so that only enrages her.
Now let's be honest
somebody
here.
To push back against her.
Black was very assertive and told her to get the hell off of him. And she still attacked him.
He did. And I was hoping that this was like a mental compulsion of push because you need to feel that push back from another like thinking entity to show that like they are somewhat your equal. And so she keeps prompting everybody to tell me to go, just tell me to leave. And then Black told her, like, get the fuck off me, leave, kind of thing. But then she didn't. And so I was a little disappointed. I was hoping that was going to be a part of the, like a contract. Like
Maybe.
you have to invite a vampire into your house. Like if you
Mm.
tell this kind of vampire to leave assertively,
They just
they
have to
have to
go.
leave. Like
The
it
priest does,
removes the desire from her to attack if they tell her to leave assertively. But
the priest does though, because when she's like, "Come in," and he goes, "Nope," and she's
Nope.
like, "Come on,
We're good.
come in, join us," and he's like, "No, I don't want to."
That's shortly after she
Oh, yes.
breaks down and she rips her clothes off.
Right. After she's looking at the brochure that has the cross on it.
yeah,
And then when she's in the church, when she's in the hospital afterwards, after she kills the entire philosophy department, and then she just wanders off all covered in blood
Quick
and ends
thought.
up in the hospital. Yeah, she looks up and sees the cross again, and that's when the priest comes in and does her last rites.
Quick thought about this whole mantra of telling people, hey, tell me to go, tell me to leave. What if they're looking for people that are more aggressive, that actually physically want them to go away? So when Black physically told her to go away, that aggression that built up inside of him possibly makes the blood more potent as a drug to them.
Mm.
yeah. So they could
The
just be
adrenaline.
provoking the human to produce something in their blood by riling them up.
Yeah, and she says that. She says it's not about the blood, it's about my will against theirs. And
yeah,
that's
the
when she's
violence
standing in
of
her
my
living room and
will
she just
against
goes,
theirs. Yeah.
sticks her hands in the air. Like, oh, okay. I don't know what that meant, but all right. This
She's
was
just
so
feeling
cerebral.
herself.
This was
you
so
know.
cerebral.
It
It's
was
really
a very cerebral
it
movie.
was very it wanted to be it kind of reminded me of Only Lovers Left Alive. Like my problem with Only Lovers Left Alive is it always feels like either I'm too dumb to get what this movie is supposed to be about, or this movie is actually dumb but thinks it's smart, and I don't know which one it is. And that's what Only Lovers Left Alive is. Or I had a friend who described it like kind of like a Mario game where you can get all the way to the end and you can beat it, but you know there were hidden levels maybe that you just didn't find.
It's like I chose not to do that.
Yeah. Like you can beat the game and it can be fun, but did you miss the secret levels or were there actually no secret levels? Like I don't know. I don't know. And that's how it felt with this one was like, was I just not getting it or was it actually dumb and it thought it was really smart? I don't know which one it was. It just felt like a bunch of philosophy students got together and wrote a vampire book, a vampire movie.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually, I think I mentioned, there's another vampire movie that came out in 93 called Night Owl that they did in black and white. And it was low budget. And then there's this one, which came out in 95, and it's in black and white, and it's low budget. And there's actually another one that came out in 94 called Nadia. And that one is in black and white. And they're all three like these weird, low budget, black and white vampire movies.
I thought this film was pretty well done.
Weird that it happened 3 times.
Like
It's
filming wise, I think they did a great job. Like a lot of the timing and
the lighting was cool.
yeah, the lighting was really good.
They had a lot of fun with like lighting, like when the light from the blinds is moving down the wall towards her. That was really cool. Or in the beginning when Casanova pushes her into that stairwell, and you
so
can
she's supposed to be dead, and she ended up in the hospital twice, and they treated her like she was normal.
right.
Somehow.
Yeah, they gave her an IV. So, An
Like the
IV
first time around, they they gave her the IV. They had her
it
all set up.
requires a pulse. Like you have to have circulation for an IV to work.
Just seems like you have an aggressive anemia that was brought on or exacerbated by the incident or whatever.
When was your
She's like,
last
okay,
period?
I was going to say, I'm surprised they didn't just ask her when her last menstrual period was.
And then the second one, the nurse is not even questioning anything. She's like, can you open the blinds for me? And they open the blinds, and she's basically trying to death by sunlight, I guess.
Yeah, she's trying to kill herself.
Which, Annabella was not having any of that. Casanova was like, nope, it's not going to be that easy.
I know, she shuts the blind. She's like, no, you don't get out that easy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe she could. I don't know. Sort of your fault that she's here, so.
I'm curious as to why Casanova just passed this priest and let him go.
I don't know.
Why she wouldn't have kept an eye on a member of the clergy, considering I'm guessing that crosses in general might vex them. It seemed to have caused her some issues in a few areas, mental distress-wise anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe just in like a reflection of your... Because at the beginning she has that discussion about... Well, first the philosophy teacher is talking about determinism and the fact that you can't feel guilty if you don't know what guilt is. And then they talk about... She's talking about sin and how can you tell if you're ever forgiven, or do you just carry your sin forever? Like... How do you know that when you were a kid and you did something wrong that's been forgiven? And so it's a whole when she's faced with morality, she feels her own guilt, but when she's divorced from human morality, when she's at her most monstrous, she doesn't feel guilty for anything that she's doing. And then at the end, when she realizes what she just did, that is when she feels her sin again. And so I think the cross is more of it doesn't allow her to completely divorce herself from humanity.
It brings the whole idea of sin back into her mind.
As they were saying, that the cross is what brings her... I think it was a point she made at the very end about the cross or her sins being brought into the light. I'm trying to remember the exact quote at the very end of the movie, and it's bothering me now. Save me, please, if you remember what it was. She was...
I don't.
It was something that she meant at the end about having basically a light shown on herself. Like the
when
light
she's walking
shining
away and she does her last monologue. And that's the one where she's talking about self-reflection is...
self-revelation.
Self-revelation
is the destruction of self.
Yeah.
Because, save me from myself here right now, because my brain is off in left field. It's been a long damn day.
It's probably more of it wasn't that I was afraid of the light or that the light harmed me. I was afraid of the same thing with the mirrors. Does she not see herself? Does she actually not appear in the mirrors, or is she appearing in the mirrors, but she no longer recognizes herself?
Or she's horrified by what she sees.
Right. And so if she doesn't see herself, she doesn't have to face who she's become.
Mm-hmm.
So the light is probably supposed... This is this kind of movie. This is what this kind of movie is. Really, is the light metaphorical? Is the sunlight allergy metaphorical?
The vampirism is metaphorical.
Is it all metaphor? Why is this fucking movie? Anyway, so it's like the light is like you don't want to be in the light, because that's another way of, I'm exposing who I am. I am shining a light into the dark corners that I would rather not think about in myself.
So the sunlight in general being something that would expose her for who she really is, as opposed to the cross, which is more of exposing, or I should say,
Maybe
as you were
the
saying,
cross
like
is
divorcing
a
her
contrast.
from her.
Well, like the cross, the light, the mirrors are all like they're a thing that forces her to see herself. And so anything that forces her to see herself causes a destruction of a whatever belief, right? So I'm okay killing people. There's no consequences. I'm not even human anymore.
Right. If she's denying and suppressing all of the human elements to just maintain her sanity, then to have those, unmasked by the light or the cross or whatever is traumatic.
That's what's destructive. Being forced to face who she is and her mistakes
The destruction of self.
is the destruction of self.
Okay.
I think that's what they're going with.
I am trying to kind of form intelligent thoughts here right now, but my day began as complete chaos. So my new job, it started off with a gas leak, and I also
nice.
had to deal with a power outage, and it was a mess all day. So I am sitting here in front of you,
Congrats on surviving that.
barely awake.
I had a gas leak a couple months ago, and that was pretty scary.
Oh, it wasn't an actual gas leak.
Oh.
There was the smell of gas outside, and several teachers complained. And then the gentleman that runs the school asked, "Hey, should we dial 911?" And I was like, "No, we'll figure it out." And I ended up calling over to the gas company. I'm like, "Hey, can you come out here and check things out?" And it turns out that they had also been out replying to 8 other calls that morning in the same area.
Oh, okay.
About 2 miles away, diagonally across the highway, we have a landfill incinerator, right? And the smokestack had a misfire, and
So it
just a
wasn't burning
big
off
billowing
fumes.
puff of just gas fumes
Okay.
that got caught on the wind and made everybody really, really nervous. So
Mine was a pretty large propane leak under my grandparents' kitchen that I discovered as I was doing flooring repair.
yeah,
with
that's not
circular saws and,
So what you're saying is this was the perfect time to discuss a cerebral vampire movie that was heavily skewed towards philosophy.
oh
This was so.
heavily.
This was somebody's philosophy dissertation. That's what this watched like.
I think my problem is that I would be better prepared to be doing what we're doing right now had I had the forethought after a long day of work to actually bring my notes home with me. So I have a whole 2 or 3 pages worth of notes, quotes that I liked throughout the film, all written down, not neatly, because they were written down in a rush, and I brought none of that to the table today. So I did my homework for once. Because I never do notes.
I left my homework at home. I swear I did it.
Oh my god,
that resonates.
this podcast is chaos. There's no script. I don't do notes. I don't edit. I do none of that. And so the fact that I sat down because of this film, I went in and I tried to figure out that scene that we're talking about, or about her talking to her teacher, her professor, about silence, and why don't you guess why I'm silent?
Yeah.
Right. I went and actually looked up both of those philosophers' thoughts on silence.
Oh.
And wrote them down, and I should have them in front of me right now so I could have talked about that. Did I? Did I bring it? No.
You posted the Sartre one. I saw that one on your Instagram.
I did post that. Is that
Here it is. To face what we are in the end, we stand before the light and our true nature is revealed. Self-revelation is annihilation of self. That was the quote you were looking for earlier.
Yes, that was the quote that I was looking for, that I unfortunately did not fully remember. I had it all written down because I liked it. I had the whole thing about guilt and people not really understanding how to be guilty because they don't understand what they're doing is something they should be guilty or feel guilty about.
That reminds me of a line I see every once in a while about if you feel bad because you're not being productive and you're calling yourself lazy, take assurance in a reminder that if you were actually lazy, you would be enjoying the fact that you're not doing anything, that you're not accomplishing anything.
And the other quote, the one that we were talking about, Jean-Paul Sartre, every word has consequences, every silence too. So that's his philosophy, that both silence and words have consequences. I can't remember. I'm bad today. Terrible.
I'm looking through quotes. There's the long one where Casanova shows up in the hospital at the end and she's like, Dante described it perfectly. Bleeding trees waiting for Judgment Day where we can all hang ourselves from our own branches. It's not that easy. To find rest takes a real genius. It's all a matter of discernment. Now, R.C. Sproul said, we are not sinners because we sin, but we sin because we are sinners. Or in more accessible terms, we're not evil because of the evil we do, but we do evil because we are evil. Yeah, now what choice do such people have? It's not like we have any options. So that's sort of the, like, sort of sums up the movie, really.
Right. Are you culpable for doing evil things if the evil is in you?
Yeah. Or is it just you being you?
Or are you just acting out your nature?
Are you capable of doing good things if by nature you are evil?
And then there's the quote from Parthenex, the dragon in Skyrim.
Moving on.
Is it better to be good or through much effort overcome your evil nature?
Mm.
Now, you just quoted us into silence.
Or what's the John Galt one where he says that
A robot is amoral?
a robot is amoral? Yeah. You cannot have the propensity for evil.
You can't be held responsible for it.
Yeah. A man can be neither good nor evil, because to say that they have the propensity for evil is to just
They're programmed to do it.
Then they're programmed to do it. And
Yeah.
a robot is amoral. So the only way that you can make a moral choice is if you are free to make both good and evil choices. So you cannot have a skew one way or the other. If you do, then it is not your fault.
Right. It's not amoral to do, quote, bad things.
If you are programmed to do bad things.
If your brain is hard-coded to do the bad things.
Okay, now of the performances in the film. Yeah,
Okay,
well,
now
I'm moving back.
Let's talk acting. Okay. Woo!
It's not that I don't want to talk philosophy. I'm enjoying the conversation. It's just
we got you, Chris.
This doesn't have to be a long one. We only have so much bandwidth this week.
Yes. You know what?
Oh,
We're here and we're making something, and that feels like an accomplishment.
The entire week started off feeling like I was shot out of a cannon naked into a beehive. So I'm just...
I said it's been a long year this week.
Oh, right. It's been a long year just this past 48 hours.
Acting in the film.
Acting in the film. Do you think anybody did a shit job in this movie acting? Do you think anybody did a particularly memorable job acting?
I think they all did okay. I think the lady that played Kathy could have benefited from at least some difference in her tone and volume. Like when she's talking in front of the room, she's using the exact same tone that she uses when she's talking just to one person.
I wonder if that's almost like a miscommunication between the audio people and her.
Well, she has such a raspy, whispery voice.
Maybe the director should have directed her to speak, like project her voice a little more. Or the director should have told the audio people to make sure they adjust everything so that her voice is audible.
A lot of the times where she was whispering, she was being drowned out by music in the room or music being played over the scene. I thought this was It was very interesting to have a movie heavy on philosophy. It was a black and white film, but it was basically scored by Onyx and Cypress Hill.
Ooh, the audio could have been an
Yeah.
issue
The music was wild.
because they were filming fast and cheap in existing places that were not treated for good audio recording. And so
entirely
this may
possible.
be the best they could make it with the, the environment that they were recording in.
How about we talk for just a moment about? I know we didn't really get into who. Let's finish up with the best actor, worst actor thing, and then we can get into this other thought that I had. I think Lily Taylor's performance as Kathleen was a little all over the place. Some points that I really enjoyed the performances, and some of it was underplayed. Some of it was overly melodramatic.
Yeah. It was
Mhm.
all
So-
over the place is a good description for it. This was the least Christopher Walken I've ever seen Christopher Walken.
I
Yeah.
enjoyed his role in this film specifically for that.
Yeah.
Because you don't see him specifically step outside of his normal
Christopher
thing.
Walken.
Right, you get to see this vampire character instead of Christopher Walken playing this vampire character.
Yeah.
Right. He absorbed that role. He was that
Mhm.
role. So that was
Yeah.
a really good performance for him. I do not like Paul Calderon as the professor. I just didn't like him.
Yeah, he didn't really hit. Which, I mean, if he's going for like dry academic dude who's like not charismatic, then okay.
I mean,
He
he
did
showed
it.
up for a sandwich. That's what it looked like. He was like, okay, you want me to sit here for a bit? Sure. You want me to go stand there? Okay. Oh, my student is going to invite me into her walk-up apartment and then ask me to shoot up heroin with her. I guess I'll just sit here. Fucking fine. I don't care.
I was
It was
listening
very
to
like, I don't know.
One scene that I really liked was when she draws blood from the guy's arm with the syringe, and then she just pulls the needle out, and then it like leaks a little bit of blood. It looks like they really stuck a needle in a real person's arm and then just pulled the needle out and let actual blood drip out. If that was a prosthetic arm, they did a really good job with the textures and the movement on that arm. If they did it for real, I hope that was like a nurse or something handling the needle, the hypodermic needle.
we had an on-call phlebotomist and 12 different people, and we were just like, okay, we're going to take this shot, and the first one that looks right we'll keep.
Yeah.
How much do you get paid? You get orange juice and cookies here.
A sandwich. Yeah. Same thing that some of our actors are getting.
They showed up for the craft service. That's it.
Yeah,
It's not even
that's it.
craft service. It's the leftovers from Subway.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a Subway party platter.
The anthropology student I didn't particularly like either. Catherine Urbe.
She's in something else.
She was in Law and Order Criminal Intent.
And she
She
was in
was the-
something else that I recognized her from.
I mean, she's been in quite a bit. So she's not exactly let's see. She was the wife, if I'm not mistaken, in Stir of Echoes. She was in D2. I think as the opposing the Mighty Ducks 2. I believe she was the opposing coach in that film. No, wait a minute.
We're like, she was in D2. Like, we all are like, oh my God, yes.
The Mighty Ducks and the Mighty Ducks 2.
second one.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you? I mean, if you've ever seen the Mighty Ducks, my kids have watched all of the Mighty Ducks movies.
Yeah, I've seen. I think I've seen all of them. I might
I've
not have
only
seen the
seen the
fourth
first one.
one.
The fourth one.
She's been in about 500 obscure films. What about
That's
Bob?
what I recognized her from. What about Bob?
How did I run over What About Bob? I missed
She's
that.
like the Midwestern.
What about Bob? I don't think I've ever seen
You
that.
have never seen What About Bob?
What about?
Oh,
Oh.
my God. How did I not know this? We've been
I've
together
never heard of
20
this
years and
movie.
you've never watched What About... Jesus Christ. It's got oh my god, I'm so shocked. I forgot who
Richard
everybody's Bill Murray.
Dreyfuss, Bill
Richard
Murray.
Dreyfuss and Bill Murray, and Bill Murray is like a Richard Dreyfuss's patient, because Richard Dreyfuss is a
He has, like,
psychologist.
Okay, I've
severe
never seen anything
OCD
with Richard
and-
Dreyfuss and Bill Murray in the same movie.
Okay, and Bill Murray has severe OCD, and Richard Dreyfuss is the only one who can help him, and so he follows him on vacation.
When he
He's like-
realizes his therapist is going on vacation, he's like, "No, I can't do without you," and he follows him.
Yeah, and so it's Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss. It's a very like,
Okay,
you know,
that
one of
sounds
those
entertaining.
one of those comedies where you have a ridiculous, where Bill Murray's playing a ridiculous character who won't go away, and everybody likes him except Richard Dreyfuss. Like, everybody else finds him endearing.
Best
And likes
scene is when
having
they
him
tie him to
around.
the mast of the boat.
Yes.
Well, that's like
Best scene.
I think everybody that Bill Murray goes to hang out with enjoys having Bill Murray there, but like nobody would ever want to be his wife.
Well, my favorite story about Bill Murray is from the Movies That Made Us, when they were talking about Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And how the guy who wrote Ghostbusters and then ended up passing away. I can't
Ivan
remember his name.
Reitman.
Yeah, and he was like, yeah, Bill Murray's going to be in it. And everyone's like, yeah, Bill Murray's going to be in it. They had no contract. They had nothing signed. It was like the day before filming. No one can get a hold of Bill Murray.
It was like this one phone call. He verbally said, "Yeah, I'll do it. I will be there on this day when you start."
Yeah, and then
filming."
nobody could get a hold of him. And there's no contract, nothing. And then on the day of filming, he just walked in and was like, okay, let's go. Like, they didn't know until that day that Bill Murray was actually going to show up. And I was like, that makes perfect sense, actually.
He said he was going to be here. He's a man of his word. That's what
He'll
you're
be
supposed
here.
to
Yeah,
get
that's
out of
fine.
that.
Fine.
Is he
And he showed up.
obnoxious? Yes.
Well, now
is
we
he
have to-
entertaining? Yes.
Now we have to watch What About Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Apparently.
apparently. I even quote it, the baby steps, because he tells him to take baby steps. He's like, what you need to do is baby steps. And so he just does these little tiny feet. He just like, but he's like, okay, baby steps. And so he does little
I
baby
thought you were
steps.
just being silly.
Oh, God.
A silly little goose.
So many references that I.
Well, now you're going to have to make him watch the movie so he'll understand the references.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Matt
It's a
has
good
got to watch
movie.
What About Bob?
I thought I was going to get to go to bed tonight.
Mm-mm. What about Bob?
What about
I
Bob?
got to go to the gym in the morning.
You can worry What About Jim after What About Bob.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair.
But
I wasn't really trying for a joke there. That was horrible.
no, it was good. It was, you're a dad. It just flows.
Yeah, if that's the best best pull at a dad joke, I'm not
Hey,
doing too
we're
good.
here. We're creating something. I think we should all just pat ourselves on the back.
Hey, I can pat myself on the back for sitting down and doing this podcast sans my material and with brains that are basically like melted frappuccino right now.
And with an extra large number of cars outside your window today.
That's just one. That's just
No,
one.
you've had a pretty, you've had
this whole
pretty
time.
consistent traffic today.
There's been some pretty consistent noise behind. There always is.
Yeah.
It does not help that I haven't purchased the soundproofing yet. The foam boards that you told me about to purchase the last time, I went and priced them, and to purchase one foam board to cut up for all four of these windows, it would probably cost me upward of about $70 to $80 just for the foam board. And yeah, I'm broke right now. So,
Go to the thrift store. Get yourself a couple of quilts
quilts.
layered up blankets over
for
the windows.
$3, $4, whatever. If you have a nice thrift store where they just sell quilts for cheap and then hang them up, that's what I'd do.
Well, that'll be my next thing. It'll help when I also pull the air conditioner out of the window that has, basically opened a lot of this noise up from the outside world.
Yeah.
I'm able to slide that pane of glass down the winterizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so what
I
else in the movie
dead
do we
silence
wanna-
so I can motion
about?
to the window behind me.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was going to talk about, so we're talking about best actor, worst actor. The other thing I wanted to talk about, this is a Russell Simmons project. So I believe Russell Simmons produced this film, who's widely known for being basically a big name in the Motown rap R&B sector.
That explains the music.
That explains. That's where they got it. He produced it, so they were probably like, "Oh, this is going to be the least expensive way to get permission to use this music. Let's let this guy put his name on the film." It's a Russell Simmons production. But for a Russell Simmons production, is it appropriate for the only two prominent black male actors in this film to basically have nothing names?
Their name Black.
Yeah, Black.
Yeah.
The Black and Professor. Professor, that's his only name. It's Black and Professor.
There's an unnamed black character.
There is an unnamed black character with dreads at the end of the film that I'm not sure where he came from.
Hi, 1995.
And all the people in the little shop.
Yeah.
Where she picks up Black.
The shop that literally she walks away from the shop. It's playing a song by Onyx in the background.
Yeah.
Like, you can hear the music. And then she walks away after saying, I'll catch you later, right? And when she comes back a bit later, it's playing the same song, and it's playing it at the same point where she walked away.
I mean, they paused it.
It's a metaphor, Chris.
Everything's metaphorical if you try hard enough, Chris.
Symbolism.
She just went there. Well, just I get continuity and everything, but I mean, the song didn't have to match up at the exact point where they cut away.
Right.
It's two completely separate scenes.
Yeah.
They could have played another
maybe
song
they're just
all
listening
together.
To that song on repeat all day. Don't you do that?
Maybe it's supposed to illustrate her inherent selfishness because she believes that the world does not exist when she is not present. And so when she left, they ceased to matter. And when she came back, they mattered again. And so the song started again.
I have entirely too much music thrown at me on a daily basis around here. Mm-hmm. My son's constantly experiencing new music. He's like, "Hey, go listen to this. Hey, go listen to this. Hey, go listen to this." And my daughter will occasionally throw things at me, and then my wife will try to play country music, and we'll all figure out how to silently turn that off and move on to the next thing. We're not big country fans at all.
No.
There's an occasional song that I can really get into, and it's usually like the fun, upbeat ones. But a vast majority of them are just depressing and mind-numbing, and I can't do it. I just can't.
Yeah.
Nope.
So that's not what I need to do to start my day. It's like, oh, that's how I like to go into work. It's like, oh, that explains your attitude when you leave work for the day. You go into the work going, life's over, and then you come out of work going, yep, I knew it.
Confirmed.
We've confirmed exactly what I suspected. It's over. So anything else that stood out in the film that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I think that's good. Although I think now we need to do every other black and white vampire movie from the 1990s.
You really want me to watch that John Leguizamo film, don't you?
It's so bad.
Which John Leguizamo one?
It's Night Owl, and it's
okay.
the epitome of 1990s low budget. Like, they filmed it on short ends.
Question.
So
is it comedic in any way?
No.
So this is John Leguizamo trying to do a film where he is not comedic, and it's in the 90s.
Yes.
Essentially, him trying to do a serious role back when he was heavily known for being an absolute goofball.
Yes. And it took almost 2 years to film it, so his hair is all over the place from scene to scene. Like, sometimes it's short, sometimes it's long.
I think you've shown me this one.
Yeah.
No, that was John Leguizamo looking for his sister.
Yeah, that's that one.
That's that one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it's a vampire movie?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember vampire elements from that movie.
It's okay. You probably fade it out a little bit.
No philosophy?
No philosophy.
Okay, I may have to watch it.
Just like a rockabilly vampire guy, but not funny. Not
funny rockabilly vampire
they
guy.
They are very serious vampires, Chris. Just like what we do in the show. No, Only Lovers Left Alive. We're very serious vampires. There's no comedy here.
I will watch Night Owl if you promise to also discuss Rockula with me.
Of course, I've seen Rockula. I love Rockula. When do we have to do Blood and Donuts? If we're going to do a comedic vampire movie that you haven't seen, Blood and Donuts.
I only mentioned Rockula because it's an absolutely ridiculous film.
It is, yeah.
But Blood and Donuts, I haven't seen Blood and Donuts yet either. So it's a couple of films I haven't watched.
The guy goes to a moon landing party and wakes up in, I think, 1992.
Maybe I will watch a few more of these strange vampire films and have to get into a deep philosophical discussion about the pointlessness of my existence.
Yeah, well, you will after Blood and Donuts, but for different reasons.
And possibly for Night Owl, from what you're telling me.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah?
It's a movie. I think it's on Tubi, so it's free anyway.
Yeah, I'll probably rent it somewhere because I don't like the commercials. Like, to brush up on this film, I watched it in pieces while I was at work today. Just kind of like, I had it like sitting on my desk while I was typing out notes, putting in tickets, and I was watching it on Plex. And Plex, their commercials are like egregious. So I'm like, some like Tubi will give you like 30 seconds worth of commercials, then you get back to what you're watching. Plex will stop in the middle of a pivotal point in the movie, in the middle of a conversation, and say, hey, by the way, 130 seconds worth of commercials coming your way. What?
I don't know that
I think it's like 2 minutes, 10 seconds, but
any of the like free over the internet content on Plex. I've only ever watched it on my own like self-hosted media server.
Plex is good about having a lot of like boutique Blu-ray movies on there.
Okay.
So like rather than having to go pay $30 for a boutique Blu-ray, you can go and watch some of those films right there. I myself,
with just egregious commercials.
Yeah, just a lot of commercials. At least with Tubi, they've managed to set up a system where the commercials pop up at like an appropriate point. It doesn't cut you off in the middle of a conversation or anything like that. I've never felt put out by it or forgot where I was in the movie by the length of the commercials that they throw at you. And Plex, they don't ask ahead of time, do you happen to speak Spanish? Oh, not only are we going to show you 2 minutes and almost 30 seconds worth of commercials, but half of them are going to be in Spanish.
Sweet.
And I'm like, do we have the option to just pick English
practice.
Only? Or give me subtitles to the Spanish commercials.
I like those because I like the narrators. I like the intonation of the Spanish narrators.
Oh, Spanish narrators are always like overly excited to do the commercial.
I know that's the best. You're like, oh, I don't know what you're advertising for, but I'm sold. I'm sold. I'm listening.
You have my attention.
You are really into this. Give me the salad dressing. Give that to me right now. I don't even know what salad dressing that is or if it's on the shelves where I go shopping, but give that to me.
Right.
It was a Hidden Valley commercial that just popped up to my left over here. Yes, I do have this playing in the background. So
it is your way.
All right. Well, it seems like we've wrapped up the movie portion of the podcast. Do you think that there could be a sequel to this film? Could they have made a sequel?
Not without delving into the vampire lore.
Well, yes, yeah, because we'd have to discuss how these vampires procreate exponentially. Because if he can kill 12 people in one night, and every single person that he feeds on that night becomes a vampire, and each one of those can feed on 12 people in one night, that's 144 vampires in 2 nights. And if all 144 of those can go on and kill 12 more, you are looking at a population explosion of vampires very rapidly. This is an entirely unsustainable vampire narrative.
I feel like if they go the way that Christopher Walken went anyway, though, where he was talking about, or you were talking about him only having fed on vampires, which sort of bled the human inconsistencies, or I should say the human inconsistencies out of him to the point where he was able to get back to being able to defecate, to be able to eat.
Human.
It suppressed the negative aspects of being a vampire.
Yeah.
Okay. So feeding on vampires sort of wiped out the negative aspects of being a vampire. My brain is all over the place.
And I
knew the point I was trying to get to. I just didn't know how to say it.
Yeah. And also, I think partly because he explains that he's beyond good and evil. He's like, when humans realized there was evil in the world, and there was good in the world, and there also must be evil, then they transcended beyond that. They found me. So I
Right.
think it's more of a like, you're only as evil as you perceive yourself, like determinism, the way they talk earlier. Like the only reason she believes she's evil is because she's realizes that evil exists. But if she
I,
rejects the idea of evil, then she's not evil.
I
I
I
think
feel
that's what
like
he's supposed to be.
with her having turned so many supposed intellectuals within that one party, hopefully they would have come to a realization that the better route would be for them to feed off of each other rather than go out into the world and create more of them, and thus
Yeah.
making sort of an overpopulation of vampires, leaving them with no other choice.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a possible route for a sequel.
Yeah. So the sequel maybe is already just Daybreakers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more than likely.
The whole world is vampires and they're out of blood.
Just feed off each other.
Yeah. And then they become super vampires with like bat wings and shit.
I don't think that a sequel to this would have that kind of budget.
Yeah.
No
No.
wings.
No. Well, that's what happens in Daybreakers. I'm just continuing the narrative.
Well, actually, you could do more with cheap CGI at this point that you could back in 1995. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
maybe you could have bad CGI sequel to this film.
Yeah. I'd love that. One that completely missed the point.
Just all together. No philosophy whatsoever in the film, just devoid of anything
just
that made
all
the
of that
original
gone.
film.
Yeah.
Why did we drop that?
It didn't play well with test audiences.
Turns out people realized that the philosophy being spouted in the film was not dissertation, doctorate level philosophy, but more like first year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just Christopher Walken going on a rampage.
Who that somebody I'd actually listened to somebody mention that. He's like, yeah, the stuff that they're talking about, the books that they're mentioning at the beginning of the film that the professor's like assigning them assignments from, it's not like thesis level philosophy. It's like
Right, but
literally
that's a
the first
101
year
class.
stuff.
It's like
But
wait, but they're working on their PhDs.
No, she is, because she's not in that class. She's just waiting to talk to him
Oh,
after
okay.
class. That's like
Yeah,
the
'cause
101.
And those are the books that show up in like philosophy survey courses.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd know. I need to read more. I really do.
I just let Matt read philosophy and then he reads the relevant bits to me. It's like getting highlights.
Yeah.
Then I don't have to read it.
I need to actually pick up the books to get any highlights. That's my problem, right? My life it's been just a bookending job after job after job. This is like the part that I get to absorb things, and now I'm using Audible a lot more often, so
Yeah.
I can absorb a little bit more.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying the Dark Tower stuff you guys are doing, so why don't we go ahead and give them a heads up on where they can find you?
We are at Strange and Beautiful Book Club, where we talk about books. Or you can listen to us talk about Lex every Monday or every other Monday on the Dead Do Not podcast, a Lex rewatch. We are going through the entire filmography of obscure but beloved Canadian actor Garrett Wynne Davies on Garrett Can Get It. And we also talk about more feminine-centric books on Feast, Sheath, and Shatter, which Matt is actually on for the next couple of book episodes because we were talking about Way of Kings and the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson.
Okay, good. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and pretty much wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm leaning towards kind of pushing people at Good Pods right now because it's getting a little better.
Yeah.
They're starting to set up highlights for independent podcasters and highlighting different artists that contribute a lot within the community. So I kind of appreciate the steps that they're taking, because it feels a little bit different than listening to just going in and hunting down your favorite podcast on Spotify. You're more likely to also be able to see what the people that listen or make those podcasts are also listening to. I mean, if they're active users on Good Pods. That being said, I broke a rule that I made the last podcast that I recorded. I was supposed to do this at the beginning, before, because sometimes people don't listen all the way to the end. So if,
shame on them.
If you're listening right now, thank you for
You made it.
for being here. But in a lot of cases, some people they don't listen all the way through. And so to give that little shout out at the beginning, where you give everybody your information, hey, this is where you find us. That's what I should have been doing. Not like, an hour and 10 minutes into the podcast. Hey.
Okay.
And next podcast, people aren't going to like me. Not at all. Well, I have been told by a little bird, my son, that one of the things that I need to do is I need to get out of my own head a little bit. A, take more notes. B, I have a bit of a personality, and apparently I'm not really letting that shine through with what I'm doing. Like I can be a bit more animated. And whenever I sit down and I have like a camera pointed at me, or I get a microphone in front of my face, all of a sudden I'm just like, so anyway, here's the podcast. And sometimes my brain works. Occasionally the brain doesn't. And yeah, so I got to stop doing
Skill regression is common when you unmask.
Yeah. And I've got to get out of regression. I've got to.
But you have to redevelop the skill in a different context.
Yeah.
It takes work.
Yeah, and that's where I'm faltering. It is the work part of everything, because
this is work at it.
This is working at it, yes.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I am 6 years into this podcast now, with over 200 episodes. I need to work a little harder, just a little bit.
It's fine. Speaking as someone who has...
That's one of my trigger phrases. So I don't like hearing that.
Work a little harder?
Yeah.
Work harder.
Why don't you just try harder?
Well, speaking as someone who has the world's driest sense of humor,
okay.
I have literally been married to this man for 20 years, and half the time he doesn't know I'm joking. So I really, really...
She's that good at it.
I'm that good.
I personally do not like when somebody comes to me and says, you just need to work a little harder.
Yeah.
That bothers me. But if I am looking at myself and my work and what I've been doing, and I think that I need to work a little harder at what I'm doing, that's fine. I can deal with that.
Mad at yourself for criticizing yourself too.
Yeah.
I think that might also be a loop. That's a loop that I've got to break out of. It's just being overly critical of what I do. And I really feel like the note-taking thing, it would have helped me a lot if I had my notes. But no, it's...
You'll have them next time. It's sort of like the watch in Somewhere in Time. Who told you to work harder? Did you get it from yourself? Or did someone give it to you? Is it in an infinite loop?
See, now that I'm thinking about it, I think my son told me to work harder, and now I'm thinking I need to work harder. So,
yeah, see, it's like the watch. It's a paradox.
Oh dear. All the influences that my family has over me. I don't know what to do about that.
I love that he gave you feedback.
Yeah.
No, I like that he gives me feedback too. And he's actually a really hard worker that needs to work. But that's beside the point. If he hears me say that, he will kick my ass, or he may be standing like on the other side of that curtain right now. That's just
Cracking
to my left.
his knuckles.
Yep.
Just going, yep. You know what, Dad? When you're done. He holds back, unlike my wife. If I were to piss her off with something that I said at any point, you will notice, because a shoe will fly across the room and club me. She's got good aim. I remember I had this one incident where she looked at me and I was pointing at her for some reason, and she goes, "If you point at me one more time, I swear I'm going to break your finger." And I really don't think she intended to break my finger that next moment, but she definitely sprained it. I tested her. I'm
Follow
like,
through.
I tested her. I was like, "No, I'm going to test this." I'm like, "You're not going to break my finger." And she grabbed the finger, bent it back, and I'm like, I can't even yell. I can't even yell at this point because you said you were going to do it. I was like, ha ha ha, no, you're not going to do it. And then she did it. So at least I've learned that if she says, do that again, I'm going to break your finger, I've learned, well, we're not going to do that again then. No.
Oh, sorry. There
We
was a
heard a
car with
noise.
really loud thumping bass, and we were trying to figure out if that was you or us.
It is definitely not me. I would have noticed that.
Oh, that was one of us then.
So that was on your end. I didn't hear it, so thankfully it didn't bleed through here.
Oh, there we go.
Woohoo.
That's good
That's
then.
good. Don't you guys have soundproofing though?
We kind of do. We have a good noise gate, so if we're not talking, the mics aren't on. But,
Okay.
There's a lot of celebration happening here.
Yeah.
This is
I've
not
seen-
the United States of New England, Chris.
Well, I mean, there's quite a bit of celebration going on in different areas here too. I live in a city area,
Mm-hmm.
so you can imagine that this particular area probably went a different way than other areas do.
Mm-hmm. This is probably
And,
a good place to leave it.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it.
Yep.
You know what? I think the problem is that we talked too much about it in the past, and we gave it a little too much of ourselves, and I'm not giving it any more.
Yep.
I'm done.
Fair.
I will leave it at the word "it" and
Yes.
be done with it. Thank you for joining me tonight for this movie. I really appreciate being able to watch something from my shelving system. I have 500 movies sitting next to me. I guarantee you I've watched 50. So, well, because we stream a lot. And so I've purchased all these movies over the past few years, insisting that I'm going to sit down with the people that I have over here and watch the movies, and then we're going to do podcasts on them. But then a lot of the people I had over here have dissipated into doing other things, and work, family, and other things. They take priority, and I can't complain about that. So,
Yep.
Fair.
I appreciate both of you for coming over here and talking about this film, even though philosophically I'm devoid. I have
because then you don't have. You know what? Philosophy doesn't matter unless you believe it matters, because we learned about that.
Okay.
As long as you stay ignorant of philosophy, it doesn't have to affect your life. That's how philosophy works.
That's kind of how I feel about bad movies. That bad movies won't affect your life as long as you stay ignorant of them, and then I go watch them. So you're only coaxing me to just read books. I have this thing about, no, stay ignorant of it and it won't bother you. And then I go and immediately assault myself with something. So
you got to pick the scab.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna be on Audible, just like searching for things, so that I may want to pick the scab, but I'm gonna have somebody do it for me.
There you go.
Might I recommend Atlas Shrugged, but the version read by Kate Redding?
You can recommend that, yes.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay. I think I actually have. There was a free version that they had on Audible.
Yeah, I think
but
it's
I don't think
read
that's
by a
that.
man.
Yeah, no, that's not the same thing. All right. So, as my friend is so fond of saying to end the podcast, drink some water, you thirsty bitches. And it still doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth. I've got to find something
You're
else.
going to come up with something. I can feel
And
it.
that's the way the cookie crumbles. Do the... Was that
Walter
Bruce
Cronkite.
Almighty? I was thinking
yes.
Bruce Almighty.
Yes, yeah.
When he
And
was
that's
doing
the
his
way it
Walter
was.
Cronk. He was doing
Yeah.
the Walter Cronkite thing
Mhm.
while they were making the world's biggest cookie.
Yeah.
Yep.
which it wasn't the world's biggest cookie. He's like, this is not even the world's biggest cookie. This is not the county's biggest cookie. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
This is not news.
Bye.